Welcome to Q Dads, I'm Steve, and episode 6 of Foundation gives us sad backstories, deception, and even a birthday fruit.
Happy birthday. It's a piece of fruit.
The episode titled Why the Gods Made Wine gives us a more in-depth look into Tellem Bond and her attempts to get the Prime Radiant. Although we touch on others in this episode, the story focuses heavily on Hari, Sel and Gaal's journey. The episode starts with Hari and Sel as we get a flashback to Hari on Helicon. Here he learns his first prediction of masses as he navigates his way through a herd of moonstrikes, unscathed, showing us he predicted the pattern of movement. It feels though we're shown this as an almost counter to the Mentalics with their ability to corrupt the mind. Hari's ability to see patterns is almost comparable to Gaal's ability to see the future. Sal is given a tour of Ignus by the little boy. He informs us about the unvoicing, where you project your thoughts. He also informs us how Tellem Bond saved him and all the others too, travelling to planets to rescue those with powers. The group rejoin and tell Tellem about the mule and that Gaal can see the future. Here, Tellem seems to recognise the future and that it is a real possibility, which is something she seems to fear. I question here if she knows who the mule is and what he is capable of. If she doesn't know who he is, I think she at least understands the power the mule holds. Not only that, Tellem is able to use this information a lot later to manipulate Gaal. However, I wonder if Tellem actually welcomes the mule, as it seems she hates non-Mentalics. Brother Constant and Polly reach Terminus, and here we learn an interesting fact about the Spacers. They are human and were genetically modified around 600 years ago by Empire. They enter Trantor, and as they are no longer part of a recognised outreach planet, the scanner turns orange, resulting in them both having a temp visa to visit Trantor. Hari and Sel chat about why he has a body. Is this to become a martyr, or is it the wrong move? Sel seems more switched on and isn't afraid to question things, including Hari's intentions. I question at this point, however, if this was even Sal at all. Was this Tellem trying to infiltrate his mind, as the conversation always flows around Hari and the Prime Radiant? Also, it seems as though this is foreshadowing the end of the episode, and I've mentioned this in the previous cast, how Hari's death and resurrection are akin to religious events. Tellem interrogates Gaal to twist her mind and bring her away from Hari. In this moment of mind manipulation, she somehow gets Gaal to use some sort of telekinesis to push Tellem away. I still question, was this real? Something about this planet and the inhabitants makes me ponder, is it all just an illusion controlled by Tellem Bond, similar to Hari and his Prime Radiant? We see Hober Mallow for a brief moment as he wakes from his ship. He struggles with controlling the spirit, but as he does, this disturbs Becky below. Now, we know the Foundation were able to create some sort of patch to replicate how spacers act during jumps. But does this not affect Becky? And still, why do we keep seeing this Bishop's Claw? There has to be something to it, especially seeing as Becky was able to sense the incoming spacer ship before the scanners were. We confirm that the Prime Radiant sits outside of space and time and does appear in more than one place at the same time, as predicted. Tellem ruffles Hari's feathers in a heated debate about Helicon, which we later learn about, but here I find something not quite right about the scene. I'll touch on this in just a moment, but it stems around everything being a dream. Polly shares a moment with Constant about how his belief is more real as he witnessed Hari with his own eyes, but also saying that her faith for the cause without seeing him
puts my belief to shame.
It's a touching moment that does tug on our heartstrings, but before we can even process, they are taken away. This makes us question why. I presume Empire want to kill them to stop the spread of the word of Hari, but will Sareth change his mind? It does start to make me wonder, is Hari using Brother Constant as a martyr, knowing that she's the daughter of the head of the Foundation? So if she's killed, this would make the Foundation move quicker. Speaking of Sareth, Empire makes a speech to his people to announce the relationship and that Sareth will now be known as Empress Sareth I, ending the genetic dynasty. Here she makes an unexpected speech which angers Empire, but she rallies the people quite effectively. A small detail is that Mademoiselle clutches her crystal. Is this a moment of sadness for the genetic dynasty ending, her relationship with Empire ending, or a facade for the whole thing? Not only that, I'm not sure if it was just artistic filming, but during the speech by Empire about the previous Empress and her reign, the camera shoots over Empire's shoulder to put Mademoiselle in full focus.
And the last galactic Empress, and the genetic dynasty, my dynasty, succeeded Cleon's.
I believe there's still more to the story with Mademoiselle and the Empress. Could she be an AI based on the previous Empress, Winniset's mind, hence why Mademoiselle is not willing to go directly against Empire, as he would be some kind of weird child to her? We learn Hober Mallow is taken to a ship and somehow defiles the home swarm, which seems to be populated by the genetically engineered spacers. Why has he been sent here, and what is his plan? In the final scenes, we learn a lot. We learn that we were tricked with Hari, and that he was in fact tied down in some torture device where he ultimately dies. Before he does, we see flashes of his life and how he first predicted the masses of the moon strikes. His first meeting with Yana back on Helicon, and the fact he was expecting a child. Through this connection, he learns that Yana dies and ends up killing Dr. Taj through the use of the moon strikes. An interesting end to the episode, leaving us with lots of questions, also allowing us to understand his hatred for Empire. We notice in the final scenes that the prototype or earlier model of the Prime Radiant can open up, so maybe it's easier to hide, but also does this change the contents of the Radiant? The episode made me question the whole Hari, Sale and Gaal story. Was all of what we witnessed fabricated in Gale's mind in order to find the Prime Radiant? We know that wasn't really Hari she was arguing with, but did she really use telekinesis and give the fruit to Sale? Or was all of this a lie to get information on the Radiant? Was Tellem's fear for the mule fake, and actually she wants to nurture him and bring his rise to power? She pretty much stated to Hari how she hates all non-mentalics and doesn't really care about the second crisis or the third.
This isn't murder. I would never kill one of my own.
The final question I have to ask is Hari actually dead? I've speculated for the last couple of weeks how I believe he's going to be a cyborg or something similar to Mademoiselle. I also can't help but think that he planned this to happen, to force Gaal to take Ignus by force and ultimately start the second foundation, as she was meant to do for the first. Join us in a couple of days as we deep dive into episode 6 in our weekly Foundation cast, as we get some more of Ben's opinions on how the episode has played out. As always, catch you next time with something new.